Hey everybody, we are here for the Game of the Year part of the show. I'm here with our nominees, and I know we're super anxious to get to the awards, but first we're going to talk a little bit about their craft. Welcome again to the 24th annual D.I.C.E Awards and our developer discussions. We are so fortunate to have all of them here and bringing them all together so that we can have this wonderful conversation together. Let's get into our nominees and some introductions. First up from Animal Crossing New Horizons, we have Nate Bildorf. How you doing, Nate?
I'm doing great. How about you?
It's like we've never left each other. It's so good to see you again. Give the folks at home a little bit of info about yourself.
My name is Nate Bildorf. I am the Senior Vice President of Product Development and Publishing at Nintendo of America. I've worked for Nintendo for 20 years. One of the first games that I worked on actually was the original Animal Crossing for GameCube. And I'm here representing the Nintendo teams across the world who worked on this game.
Awesome. And coming to us from the Final Fantasy VII Remake team, we have Kitase-san. How are you doing, Kitase-san?
はい、スクエアエニックスの北瀬義則です。ファイナルファンタジー7リメイクのプロデューサーをやっています。原作の24年前のファイナルファンタジー7もディレクターをやってました。
Hi, my name is Yoshinori Kitase. I'm the producer of Final Fantasy VII Remake, but I also worked on the original Final Fantasy VII from 24 years ago as director.
Thank you so much for being here. And from Ghost of Tsushima, we have Brian Fleming. How are you doing, Brian?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Excited for you to be here with us. Give the folks at home a little bit of info about all the work you've done in the space as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna get nosed out. We started Sucker Punch 23 years ago, so just after Final Fantasy VII. So, but we've been working on games from the Sly Cooper series all the way through to Ghost, and just incredibly grateful after all that time to finally be at this table. So.
I'm super excited to have you here. From the Hades team, we have Amir Rao. How are you doing, Amir? How's everything going?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Give the folks at home a little bit of info about yourself as well.
I'm Amir Rao. I'm the studio director for Supergiant Games. I coordinate the work we do here, and I do game design. So I tune the weapons and powers and enemies and stuff inside our games.
And lastly, but not leastly, from The Last of Us 2, we have Neil Druckmann. How are you doing, Neil?
Doing well, thank you.
Good to have you here. Let the folks at home get a little more information about you as well.
So I'm the co-president of Naughty Dog, and I was the director and co-writer on The Last of Us Part 2. I've been in the industry for a little over 16 years now, all of them at Naughty Dog. Started as a programming intern, and just proud that I got to wear all these hats before coming to here, and it's a pleasure being here.
Super excited to talk all about your games and the wonderful work you've put into the space. Again, for this category of Game of the Year, it is a big one, and we are going to, hopefully dig into some of the wonderful conversations and ideas behind how each one of these games were made. The first question goes to Kitase-san, and the question will be, while much of the game is familiar to longtime fans, there are several new twists and turns that present themselves that are, not in the original version of Midgar. One of the key changes is how often Sephiroth is present this early in the story. What was the impetus behind introducing him so early this time around, and what new features were you most excited about for players to experience?
はい、セフィロスが序盤に登場する理由は2つあります。1つ目は演出面ですね。原作当時はセフィロスって存在を誰も知らなかったので、より彼を怖い存在として演出するためにはあえて姿を前半見せなかった。それは当時スピルバーグのジョーズの手法であり、前半姿を見せなくて恐怖を盛り上げるという、手法を取ったんですけど、24年経った今では誰もが知ってる悪役キャラクターになってしまったので、隠す必要性がなくなってしまったので、前半から登場させました。
So the reason why I had Sephiroth appear so early in the story were two reasons, twofold. One was from a presentation perspective. Of course, at the time when the original source material came out, nobody knew about Sephiroth. So we wanted to evoke that sort of scariness, that imminent sort of evil that kind of lurks without showing the actual person. It kind of takes inspiration from Spielberg's Jaws, where you never see the shark, but you're still very afraid of it. But now that 24 years have passed since the original, I think everybody is familiar with Sephiroth at this point. So there was no reason to hide him. So that's why he appeared in the beginning.
2つ目はストーリー面で、クラウドとセフィロスっていうライバル関係は、このセブンの物語の中で非常に重要になってきますので、最初からその2人の、ライバル関係っていうのを明確にしたかったっていう点です。
And the second is from a story perspective. Cloud and Sephiroth were going to be against each other. They're sort of like the protagonist, antagonist that's in the narrative. So we wanted to depict that and make that very clear that those two were going to be rivals.
今回作で、プレイヤーに体験してほしかった、一番体験してほしかったっていうのは今の、キャラクターたち、クラウドやセフィロスが原作はボイスもなかったですし、アニメーションもそれほど今ほど技術は高くなかったので、彼らのドラマティックなストーリーを体験してもらいたいと思っています。
And so we really looked forward with this remake for the players to experience this in a very new way, not just the characters who did not even have voiceovers in the original work, and the animation was not as expressive or expansive as they are in modern games, but that sort of character depiction, as well as the drama, the dramatic sort of storyline as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that answer. And one follow-up question. Given that you directed the original Final Fantasy VII, how do you feel that the remake both honors and moves forward the game's legacy?
そうですね。原作と今の時代一番大きく違うのは、原作はやっぱりゲームプレイのバトルシーンがターンベース、コマンドベースの、作品だっていうのに加えて、今のゲームシーンのトレンドっていうのはアクションがトレンドになってますので、いかにそこを融合させるか。やっぱり原作好きな人はゆっくりと戦略的に遊びたいし、今の若い世代のユーザーはアクションで遊びたい。その2つの融合をさせることが非常に大きなテーマで、それがうまく本作ではいったと思っています。
For sure. With the original title and the remake, and the difference that those two titles have, I feel is that the original was very much turn-based. We call it command-based, but it's very turn-based, whereas modern games feature more action-oriented gameplay. So our goal was to sort of merge those two elements together, because we do understand that there are fans of the original who enjoy that sort of strategic gameplay of the turn-based style, whereas we also have new players coming onto the game who prefer that sort of action-oriented title. So I think that was one of the unique things that we brought to the table, is that merging of the turn-based and the action-oriented gameplay. And I feel like we were really successful in doing so.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your thoughtful answers on that. I really do appreciate that. Amir, I'm curious about, early access was a big part of the development of the game, and a lot of folks, when they kind of came to it, that was a huge part of the kind of lore of the game itself kind of being out in the world. Did releasing the game in chunks kind of present any unique challenges, or kind of how did it affect the way that the kind of really robust narrative has come out as well?
Yeah, I think Hades definitely would not have been the game it was without its early access. It helped us a lot in every aspect of the game, including the narrative. We sort of imagined it like an episodic TV show or something like that, where we would be releasing episode after episode, which meant that we really had to stick the landing on the ending, and see how it would all come together. So that was something that was on our mind the whole time we were in development. I would say that early access was essentially vital to the game, and it also obscured aspects of it for us, because we would release an update, and the content of the update would be consumed really fast by our players. And it wasn't until we were playing through the whole thing with an ending and all the things we added in 1.0 that we really knew the game that we had. It was almost surprising even to us to experience it front to back in that way by the time it was done.
Yeah. How many, I'm sure once you had the first initial kind of pieces out in the world, and everyone was really excited for the game. How quickly did you have to hear from the audiences about, so when's the next part dropping? When are we going to when are we going to get the next part of this wonderful part of the game?
Yeah, early access has like almost an addictive quality as a developer because you get feedback so quickly, and it incentivizes you to patch again and again and again, and you get the feedback again and again and again. And so it feels really good when you're making players happy, and it has the sort of a similarly challenging set of feelings when your updates aren't really working, or the things you're changing aren't really achieving what you hope to achieve. But you know, like I said, it took our early access community to kind of help us understand what to focus on and what to fix, and to make Hades what it ultimately became.
And Neil, I want to throw it to you about, you know, the space in which kind of Last of Us 2 kind of laid with the, you know, you're in this post-apocalyptic world, and it's filled with all these moments of this moral ambiguity. You know, how did you kind of keep players invested in the world and its characters, you know, while kind of still having this really haunting experience?
Yeah, I guess you're talking to some of the darker subject matter that exists in that world, and I think that's part of the game that we're making. So we had to lean into that and, you know, double down on those things and own the kind of message and genre that we're in, but then find the right balance with, you know, more lighthearted moments or character moments or just mechanics that keep you engaged. So we keep asking ourselves the question is like, okay, how can we immerse you in the world, pull you into the story, into the narrative, into the relationship of the characters, create interesting mysteries for you to kind of keep you engaged intellectually, as well as keeping you engaged like mechanically. And then hopefully if we're hitting our stride on all cylinders, then you know, the mechanics, the music, the animation, just the aesthetic of the world, everything is pulling you in and moving you emotionally as well as all those other things that we mentioned.
New Horizons offered a whole other layer and level of, you know, customization that we hadn't really even seen before in an Animal Crossing game. You know, folks were allowed to have opportunities to express themselves in this new creative way, and it was a big part of the primary development part of the game. How important was it, you know, to have each player kind of feel like each island that they made and crafted was indeed really their own?
I mean, I think you've hit on really the central important thing in the game, which is to not only make a unique space for yourself, but make a unique space that maybe you want to show to other people. And certainly I think the biggest step that the team took with that was the ability to really decorate the outdoors. I mean, you have, of course, your house, which you're putting the right wallpaper up, you're sort of setting the right rugs in the right places. But once you step outside and you can just create this entire wonderland, you know, I have a dinosaur park over in my northwest corner, and, you know, people have just, the level of creativity on display that we've seen is just absolutely incredible. And I think for me, I think what really drove it home and was the fact that people were celebrating these and creating these amazing places to visit out of very mundane, familiar objects. You know, the game in many ways is just an absolute celebration of the simple, beautiful things that are all around us. You know, whether it's a velvet stool or, you know, a beautifully modeled fossil that you can read about and learn about the world around you. That intersection to me of the real world and then this very safe enclosed fantasy world that people can make their own and sort of display what they want to display is the heart and soul of the game. And it's something that I still, you know, even now haven't tired of experiencing, going to random islands, either in dreams or via seaplane. It's something that I don't think I'll ever tire of.
And I also really loved the collaborative efforts from everyone in the community too, where that felt like a huge part of, you know, the way people talked about it and kind of came to it was like, hey, I don't have this thing. Can you give me some of those things so I can kind of make my world and continue to build it in that way? How important was that as well?
Oh, it's absolutely crucial, and you know, it's, I think, a very deliberate design choice on the part of Ms. Kyogoku and her team. You know, little things like not being able to store extra recipes in your house. it seems like, oh, this is sort of inconvenient. I have to leave it lying on my floor. But, what that's really doing is encouraging you to share with your friends. It's it's an incentive for you to go to someone else's island and maybe spread a little bit of knowledge around. And absolutely, the amount of things. I mean, this game is very dangerous for somebody like me because I'm typically a completionist in games, and this game is not conducive to that sort of a mental state because you just can't ever get it all. And certainly, getting the things that you want is a much faster and more enjoyable experience the more people that you interact with. And you get a very healthy trading loop. Of course, you have to pick your friends when Red's treasure trawler arrives with his very rare and infrequent pieces of art, and you can tell your friends who gets the one extra real piece of art that's on the ship at that time. It's maybe not the greatest thing for healthy relationships, but it's something that really encourages communication and celebrates family and friendship. And I think that those very simple concepts are what drive the core of the game and what makes it so universally pleasurable for people.
I love that. Brian, Ghosts have been in development was for 6 years in terms of the development journey. What lessons did you kind of learn throughout the years of development, and what do you kind of hope to bring forward into future projects?
Yeah, it's interesting. The first couple of years, I think we really only knew that we wanted to do a melee-based game. We actually set aside a couple games that were in that space because I think in the end, it was incumbent on us as creators to really understand where and when the special was, and did we really have something that was worthy of the team and the time and spending a big chunk of our lives working on it. And when we found the idea, that there's this sort of sequence in the span of like 24 hours where we were looking hard into Samurai as a conceit, and when Nate and Chris found this particular invasion at this particular island with these particular enemies, you just kind of felt like that was the moment. Like there was this singular moment where you're like, okay, there it is right there. And literally you wanted to just go take everything off your desk and clear it away. And I think the big thing for me was just that there was so much clarity, and it really helped us. And I don't know if we'll be able to conjure that level of clarity again, but I know that it was responsible, I think, for the project and the team really being successful because we were so clear on the original vision of the game once we discovered it and we just knew it. Nate and Jason, the creative directors, they knew it and they were able to lead us to the final project. So I don't know if it's a lesson as much as an experience, and you know how it felt, and at least you're optimistic that you can get back to that point again.
Is that kind of a like a lightning in a bottle moment for folks, kind of when you're doing this work and everyone can kind of quickly jump in and talk about that, kind of related to your projects, when you have this thing that you've kind of seen as the like, oh, this is going to be wild if we actually take this on in that bigger way. Brian, was that kind of what that was for all of you at Sucker Punch too?
I think it was. I mean, the day we presented the idea to the team, I think it felt like that. There were moments when we decided, projects ago, a particular idea that, a hero would have this particular power set, and all of a sudden everything fits. And so those moments are for me really important and really powerful part of the act of conjuring a new game. And I'd be curious if other people have those experiences. I assume they do, but.
Yeah, totally. If you feel, like that speaks to you, please chime in. I'd love to hear other people's thoughts on that. Amir, any thoughts to that as well?
I mean, in our case, the core team that worked on Hades worked on all our games throughout the years. We've made Bastion together and Transistor and Pyre, and each time, has been a little bit different than the last. And so, somehow that same team only made one Hades. So it's hard to know what are all the pieces that are going to make something come together. But for us with Hades, we felt like we were building on all our best ideas and pulling together kind of years of creative chemistry where we had learned what we do well together. And we even added some new voices because we grew the team slightly. And so I think the combination of those things, of actually understanding what we're good at and what we struggle with and what our constraints are, which took us a really long time to figure out over several games. Ended up being really critical learning for us in making Hades come together.
Nate, I know you're here kind of representing a bunch of different games for Nintendo, but when you're having talks with the teams, do you feel like there's some of that in there as well when you kind of have started a new project, or that's kind of going to be a part of the landscape?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think you have one of the things with Nintendo, of course, is we have a lot of long running series, and so something like Animal Crossing simultaneously represents several leaps forward in terms of new gameplay ideas, but also a rightful and expected celebration of the history of the series. The parts of the games that people have loved in the past, you have to honor those. You certainly have to upgrade them, where expected, but not too far, because you have this, a very passionate fan base that will, wants to have the new experience, but also wants to remember all the experience they've had before them. So walking that line can be difficult sometimes, but I think that it's a necessary part of long running series to continually evolve and surprise and delight the player base in new ways over the years.
Yeah, it's very cool to hear just how, again, how passionate everyone is about, their particular projects, but also hearing how passionate it is about, getting the chance to work on a project that is super cool, that gets you excited and wants you kind of move that conversation forward. Really quick before we dig into and give away our Game of the Year award, I would just love to go around really quickly and talk about, how cool is it to be nominated for a Game of the Year at D.I.C.E this year? Kitase-san, how cool is it to be, nominated this year?
非常にやっぱり我々も昔の原作の FF7 をどう現代に蘇らせるかっていうのは非常に慎重に作っていきましたので、それがある種、評価していただいたという証となるので非常に光栄に思っております。
Yeah, we're definitely honored because when we were working on this project, we were thinking about, well, how do we resurrect this title in the modern age? And we were very careful about how to handle it. So seeing just how well received it was and how we've been given this honor to be here just shows, and it really pays off. Our efforts really pay off. So it's really cool.
Amir, you have any thoughts to share on that?
I mean, yeah, never in my wildest dreams did I imagine I would be on a panel or in a conversation with people who represent some of the most amazing work the industry produces and who have worked on games that are the reason many of the people on my team make games at all. So thank you to everybody on the panel. And in general, the whole experience after Hades came out has been incredibly surreal for our team. It feels like the game got much bigger than the thing we actually built and made, and we're incredibly grateful that that happened, and we're really grateful to be included in this conversation and to be nominated for Game of the Year.
Brian, any thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, from our team standpoint, this is a life first for lots of us, and just so appreciative of both the recognition, but really just the opportunity to be amongst, our favorite games. I was looking back from the beginning to the end. I mean, I've played, virtually every winner of every year, and the idea that we could be on that list is really phenomenal. So I'm just super appreciative, super grateful on behalf of the whole team.
Nate, any thoughts?
Just want to echo what everyone else said. This is rare company to be in. I think it's the other nominees here are all really incredible games, and to have Animal Crossing: New Horizons spoken in the same breath, I think is a great honor for certainly for the development team, but really for all of Nintendo. It's this celebration of a lot of games. I'm looking at these panels and thinking about exactly how many hours I have in all of these games, and it's actually pretty horrifying. I get my Switch kicked out my annual report of hours, and Animal Crossing actually was the most hours last year, but Hades was second. which is kind of crazy. And I played all of the other games that were nominated, and they're all really, really incredible in their own right. So yes, just very, very thankful to be nominated, and yeah, we really appreciate it.
So Neil, how cool is it to also be nominated for Game of the Year?
It's I'm lucky enough that I work at Naughty Dog, so it's we've got to do this a few times. But no matter how many games you make, how many awards you win, every time you start a new game, it's a blank slate. It starts over. It starts from scratch. You get all the insecurities that you do in making art. So there's something when you make the game that you're in control of, right? You're in control of how long the game is, what you're putting into it. Maybe you have some control about when you're going to release it, but then once it's out, that's it. That's the only thing you have control of, is like what the actual game is, how people receive it, how journalists will receive it, players, in this case, other developers. Like, you have no idea. So to be here and be recognized by your fellow devs, and like everybody that spoke here, like I've put dozens of hours into each one of your games, way too many hours than I care to admit it, with Animal Crossing with my daughter. It's an honor, it's a pleasure, and right now, like, we're starting something new, and I'm going through the same thing again. It's like, you don't know how people are going to react, so all you can do is just pour your heart and soul into the game and just hope for the best.
Yeah. It's always amazing to hear, when everyone talks about playing everybody else's games, and that makes me even more happy, because I'm always excited to hear the stories of devs talking about devs. So we're at the best part of our conversation, where I get a chance to share who has won our D.I.C.E Awards Game of the Year. The winner for our D.I.C.E Game of the Year for this year is Hades. Hades is our winner for this year. Awesome.
Wow.
Congratulations, Amir, and the rest of the folks over at Supergiant.
Thank you.
Give the folks at home a little bit of love, and you have the floor.
Well, thank you so much for everybody who picked Hades as Game of the Year, and on behalf of our entire team that worked on it, we just want to express our gratitude to our families who supported us, our players in early access who helped make Hades better, and to all the other game developers out there making games that inspired us, including everybody on this panel and people who have been nominated all throughout the award show, who made really meaningful and important games at a time when I think a lot of us were really relying on them. So thanks to everybody. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody, for yes. Congratulations. Again,
thanks.
Thank you all so much for being here. Nate, Kitase-san, Brian, Amir, and Neil. Your games have been brilliant. You all make wonderful things and put them out into the world, and the world is better for the work you all have done. So again, thank you from all of us here at D.I.C.E, and we hope to see you all soon in the real world. That would be fantastic.
Gotta be awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Congrats again, Amir.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you. Yeah.